Well, it's that time once again. I'm here in the beautiful San Fernando Valley, and today it took me quite a while to get out here. I was stuck in dead stop traffic at 10:30 on a Wednesday, and as I was stuck in this traffic, I couldn't help but think to myself, where are all of these people going, and why aren't they at work? And I guess for that matter, why aren't I at work? And just so you know, if you don't live in Los Angeles, or maybe you used to live in Los Angeles and you haven't lived here for a while, that's it at all times now. It is just 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It is traffic at all times. It used to be back in the day that it was only like that during something that we call rush hour, which is between like 3 p.m. and 6 p.m. roughly. That was when you got dead stop traffic, and then, you know, for the rest of the day, it was pretty free flowing. And weekends, you used to be able to get on the freeway and just fly. Weekends are even worse than weekdays now. Anyways, just letting you all know, for those of you that have maybe never been to Los Angeles, that's what we're dealing with. Just dead stop traffic at all times. Anyways, we're going to cruise around the valley. We're going to check some stuff out. But before we do that, I have to give a special thank you to my newest Patreon supporters. Now, again, if I pronounce your name wrong, I'm sorry, but a huge thank you goes out to Lou, simple enough, thank you for that, Dylan Drucktennis, and John Michael Dornoff. I also have to give a huge thank you to my brand new YouTube members, Art Coleman, Robin Stropman, and Roy Carlin. Thank you so much. You are the first 3 YouTube members, so hats off to you. And if you didn't know, you can head over to my YouTube channel right now and click on the little button, and you can support me right there on YouTube. Now, if you're ready, let's go see what we can find. I hadn't been over in this section of the valley in a while, and I had almost forgot about Valley Presbyterian Hospital. So my family, for most of my life, we had Kaiser insurance through my dad's work, but before we had Kaiser insurance, this is the hospital that we used to come to. And my mom actually had a couple of somewhat major surgeries when I was a kid, and she had those here at Valley Presbyterian Hospital. So I did spend some time here in the waiting room, waiting to see if my mom was going to be okay, and, you know, in the cafeteria. So yeah, got some memories of this hospital. And I remember always passing by this, and it always stood out to me because of the, you know, the round type buildings. So it always stood out when we would drive by. And yeah, I just wanted to point it out because I'm sure some of you have been to this hospital as well, and I just wanted to document it. It seems like more and more things are starting to disappear, and so from now on, I'm just going to start documenting any and everything while I still can. So right now I'm walking up White Oak Avenue just south of Victory Boulevard, and I'm approaching the bridge that goes over the flood control channel, or as I called it growing up, the wash. I think there's different names for it. I think the proper name is flood control channel, but like I said, I grew up calling it the wash. Now, I've mentioned this before. I used to live in a house that's just on the other side of this flood control channel, and in the backyard of that house, I had all kinds of skateboard ramps. I spent a lot of time in that backyard, and we also used to spend, well, not a lot of time, but we used to come hang out here in this wash, and I don't know why. We would just come and hang out in here. Now, there's something that happened here in this wash back in the 90s that was extremely tragic. I've said this before, I don't usually talk about sad, negative things on this channel. I like to talk about fun, happy, positive memories, but this is something that happened. It's part of San Fernando Valley history. It's part of the 90s, and I felt like I should talk about it. And on top of that, it's also something that I witnessed with my own 2 eyes. So it's a memory that I have. So I thought, you know what, I'm gonna talk about it. But it is extremely dark, sad, and tragic, and some people might feel uncomfortable hearing about this, so I'm giving you that warning right now. So there was actually a point in time where it used to rain here in Southern California. Now, maybe not as much as other parts of the country, but we did used to get these really big storms where it would rain for like a week straight, like really heavy rain. And when that would happen, this flood control channel behind me, it would fill up, sometimes halfway, sometimes about 75% full. And my house was right over there. That was my backyard. And when we would get those storms, I would come into my backyard and I would periodically check to see how full the flood control channel was getting. Because like I've mentioned before, I was kind of a nervous kid. And so, you know, I would think like, well, what's going to happen with all that water? Where's it going to go? Is the wash going to overflow? So I would come back here and check. So that brings us to February 12th, 1992, 31 years ago this month, actually just a couple of days ago. We were in the middle of a huge storm and the wash was filling up. So I came in my backyard to see how full it was getting. And when I did, I noticed that right here on this bridge where I'm currently standing, there was a ton of people. There were police cars, fire trucks, there was a helicopter. And I thought, you know, what's going on? So I went back inside and I turned on the news, and I come to find out that a young boy has fallen into the wash and they're trying to rescue him. So basically what happened was a 15-year-old boy named Adam Bischoff was riding his bike. I'm not exactly sure where he was riding his bike, but somewhere near the flood control channel, he fell, and whatever he fell into, it swept him into the wash.
On this ramp, there's a great deal of silt, and he may have either slipped or perhaps his bike was taken away by the current, and he reached to grab his bike, and that's when he fell in and was swept away.
So I came back outside and I stood on top of one of my skateboard ramps to watch, but when I came back out, there was a firefighter right here dangling from the bridge. He was in a harness, dangling from a rope, and he was waiting to try and grab the boy as he passed by.
The teenager began his deadly journey at the other end of the valley, traveling a remarkable 10 miles up the Arroyo Calabasas Creek, then propelled into the Los Angeles River, from Woodland Hills to Encino.
I later read that his head went underwater and never came back up, just west of Balboa, and that would roughly be this area. And one part of me is really glad that I never saw him pass by, because I think that would be a really traumatic vision to have. But it's also really weird to think that probably the reason that I didn't see him pass by is that by the time he went by my house, he was already underwater. They ended up finding him the next day, and one thing that I remember is either the next day or 2 days later, I remember going to 7-Eleven with my dad, and right there on the newspaper, it had the headline, something like, you know, 15-year-old boy drowns in flood control channel. And they had this big picture right on the front of the paper of Adam Bischoff, his head just above water. Someone was able to snap a picture as he passed by. And I remember my dad looking at this and getting so angry and yelling inside 7-Eleven saying, "Look at this. Look at this garbage. This is awful." They put this right on the front of the newspaper for his parents and his family to have to look at and have to, you know, remember this for the rest of their lives. And I knew why my dad was so angry, but I didn't really understand why my dad was so angry. And I probably didn't understand it until I was an adult, and probably not really until I was a parent, but now I get it. The very same year that the 15-year-old drowned in the flood control channel, they renamed this park here in West Hills the Adam Bischoff Memorial Soccer Fields. Pretty nice way to honor his memory. So I took a walk over here into my old neighborhood. That right there, that's my old house. And then right over there, that's where we used to go into the wash. And like I said, for whatever reason, we would come over here a lot, and we would hop this fence and go into the wash and hang out. I don't even know why. Oh my gosh, it still has. This is how we would always hop the fence. This little hole right here, we would put our foot in there and then hop over the fence. I can't believe it still has that exact same hole. Yeah, it always had that no trespassing sign, but you know, whatever. When you're a kid, you don't pay attention to stuff like that. So Yeah, we would go hang out in there and hang out underneath the bridge and ride our skateboards and do whatever. So shifting gears and moving on to something a little less sad, standing here in my old neighborhood, I just had this weird memory come to me. Where you lived in your neighborhood, did you have any wacky real estate people that would come around doing weird stuff? So we had this real estate agent that would come around, and his name is like right on the tip of my tongue, but I just can't remember it, but I can completely remember what he looks like. And he had an ice cream truck. So we would be out here in the cul-de-sac playing, riding our skateboards, and he would come in his ice cream truck, and he had his realtor information on the truck, and he would hand out free ice cream to all of the kids. And you know, the thing was is he would give you like a popsicle or a drumstick and be like, you know, here you go, make sure you have your parents, give me a call. And we'd be like, thanks, my parents are broke and have no money. But yeah, that was his thing. And you know, thinking about it, like, was it worth it? Did he drum up enough business giving out free ice cream to make it worth like buying the ice cream truck, buying all that ice cream? Like, I don't know, seems kind of weird to me. So we've been here to the San Fernando Mall quite a few times for my videos. We've been here for Encino Man, we've been here for Chips, we've been here for a Valley video, been here a bunch of times. And I've shown this building here on the corner before. It's currently a Dollar Tree. It's been quite a few different things. It was a music store. I think it was a Ritmo Latino, if I remember correctly. But way back when, it was a Thrifty's drugstore, and you can see that in the episode of Chips, which that brings us all the way back to the late 70s. And then, like I said, since then, it was probably a Rite Aid because, you know, most Thrifties became Rite Aids. So it was a Thrifty's, it was probably a Rite Aid, it was a record store, it's now a Dollar Tree. It may have been other things that I don't even know about. But through all of that, through all of the different businesses it's been, right here in front of the store on the ground, let me come around this way and I'll show you. It still says right in front of the door, Thrifty's Drugstore. And I think that's pretty amazing that through all of these different years, through all the different stores it's been, this is still here. And I mean, you can tell from looking at it, you know, this is definitely vintage. And here's the really crazy thing, I just found out this isn't the only one. Here in Burbank on Magnolia Boulevard, a very busy area. I've been here many times. I've shown it to you in a few videos, but I never knew this was here. Right here on the corner is a Goodwill, and before this, it was another thrift store, I think for many years actually, but apparently at some point in time, it was a Thrifty's drugstore. I don't know when. I can't find any information about it online. I can't find any pictures of it being a Rite Aid or a Thrifty's drugstore. But apparently it was at some point in time, because if you look right here on the ground, right in front of the front door, just like the one in San Fernando, you'll find that same Thrifty's logo. Now, unfortunately, this one doesn't look too good right now because of the sun, the way that the shadow is going across it. But yeah, this is so cool. And like I said, I didn't know about these until recently. I don't even know how many there are. I mean, I just know about the two. There might be a ton of them. I have no idea. And I think that this is so awesome. A little bit of our history, a little bit of our childhood right here, bringing back that nostalgia feeling. And personally, I think that these should be preserved. I think that they should be made historic landmarks so that they can't be destroyed. But we know that's not going to happen. We know eventually this is going to be torn out and cemented over. The only reason they haven't done it yet is because they just don't want to spend the money. But eventually, that's what's going to happen. But I'm glad that at least for now, this is here bringing back that nostalgia feeling. Now, right across the street, well, across the street and down a few blocks is Be Kind Video, which I did an entire video on, and I haven't been back there since I made that video, but I have seen some pictures on their Instagram of their progress, and the store is looking pretty cool. So why don't we stop in just for a couple of minutes. It's looking so awesome in there. The store just keeps getting cooler and cooler. Definitely happy for them. So they're adding more merchandise to the store, and apparently they're gonna start slowly selling like t-shirts and hats and stuff like that. And look at what I just picked up from the store. How amazing is this? I'm so excited. On the back, locals only. This is the coolest hat ever, and they've got one left. So if you want it, hurry up and get down here and pick it up while you still can. So I was out here in Burbank a couple of weeks ago doing filming locations for the movie Midnight Madness, and I was driving by when I noticed this Kmart. And as I drove by, I did a double take because I noticed that this Kmart, at least to me, it still looks completely vintage. This looks like an old school 80s and even, pre-80s Kmart. And, I wondered if it was still open. Like, I didn't know if this was still a functioning Kmart. So I thought I got to do a little bit of research on this Kmart and come back and check it out. I found some information online. I found a video on a YouTube channel called Lost in the Valley, and he gives some information on it, and he comes here and he shows the inside of the store during their last few days open. So it is no longer open. You can probably tell by the lack of cars in the parking lot. But so originally it was a Zodi's, and I think all Zodi's either became Kmart's or Target's. It became a Kmart in the late 80s, and it was remodeled, but just on the inside. And that was in 2017, and then it closed in 2019. So it's kind of weird. I guess they didn't know that they were going to be closing in just a couple of years. The outside, for the most part, just like I thought, has not been remodeled, except for one thing. And this kind of bums me out because it did look a lot cooler. Right there above the door, it used to have, I guess you could call it like a slanted skylight. It was all glass right there above the door. And it really did just look a lot cooler. It gave it a much more vintage, I want to say 80s look, but it was even, before 80s when it was a Zodi's. But for whatever reason, they walled over that and got rid of it. I really wish they didn't. But other than that, nothing on the front has changed. It still has these signs over here for Kenmore and Craftsman and Die Hard, which those to me look completely vintage as well. And also noticing that next door is a Chuck E. Cheese, and I'm wondering if that Chuck E. Cheese has been here, since back in the 80s. I mean, can't get more 80s than that. Kmart, Chuck E. Cheese. And supposedly this Kmart was also used for the interiors of the TV show Superstore, which I've never seen, but I think just for the pilot and maybe the first couple of episodes, they filmed that right here inside of this Kmart. And you can see right here, looking through the window, some of the old checkout stands. No waiting on register 3, 4, and 5. And I think that might be it for Kmart. At least all the ones that I know of that I can think of, they've all closed down. They kind of slowly, one by one, went out of business. So I think they're gone. I mean, personally, I hadn't shopped at a Kmart in a while, and probably a lot of people hadn't, and that's why they closed down. But again, it's sad because it is part of our childhood. Most of us grew up in the 80s shopping at Kmart, and now it's gone forever. And that is going to do it for this video. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.